I'm joined by Michael Foley of the Sunday Times to talk about Cork basically in 2020. We haven't seen him up to this point, and you have to go all the way back to, it feels like, well, basically it was the start of the year, Michael, since you saw your native county in action. And the idea of just going out now in the Munster Championship against Waterford straight into a semi-final, you mustn't have a clue where your county are at.
It's really hard to know. Look, it's the same probably for most counties. Like, no real word of anything. It's kind of we just see what happens. I think like going back to the springtime, insofar as it means anything at this stage, like it was it was evening out into a kind of a fairly reflective league campaign about in terms of where Cork are at. Like they won 2 games, last 3, very good performance to beat Tip. The first game out was against Waterford. They got 2 goals in the first couple of minutes, but then Waterford kind of took over and Cork had a bit of a rally towards the end of the game to try and win it, but they actually lost it. So they started very well, faded and tried to get back and didn't get there. Their only other win in the league was against Westmeath. So it's really difficult to know. Whatever plans and whatever developments, ideas they might have had in terms of Kieran Kingston's first year back and everything, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to figure where they're at now. So it was the same. But again, it's the same for Waterford. Waterford had got a bit of momentum up under Liam Cahill, had put in some good performances. They beat Galway in their last league game, which was a very good result. But they come back with Pádraig Mahony missing and kind of just who knows where anybody is at.
Yeah. Well, my sense is always, why aren't Cork making this happen? It's now 15 years since winning an All Ireland the last time, and just in the context of this game, Owen Cadogan is a doubt. Dara Fitzgibbon apparently ruled out. Robbie O'Flynn is suspended. So all of those are blows. But if you go through the attack line, Patrick Horgan will go down as one of Cork's greatest ever hurlers. I think Shane Kingston's form has been really exceptional. When Alan Cadogan stays fit, he's unbelievably difficult for anyone to handle, and he creates mismatch opportunities for Cork also. Seamus Harnedy is a ball winner. Conor Lahan, I think we all don't understand why it doesn't happen for him more often, because his talent is up there with the top level. Mark Coleman has talent. Dara Fitzgibbon, obviously I just said he's injured. Great goalkeeper in Anthony Nash. Colm Spillane, really aggressive back. So throughout the field there is that top line quality. It's very hard to understand how it hasn't happened by now.
I think it's probably 2 things. Number one, I think there's probably issues down the spine in terms of just getting solidity at 6 and 3 in particular. And also then I think you've got an issue with depth. I mean, if you look at Limerick, even Limerick last Sunday, I mean, you look at the guys that were coming on, you look at who Tipperary will have to pick from the next day, Galway the same. The depth just isn't quite there. So like we said, the top 17 or 18 players in Cork are very, very good. But then there's a little gap, and it's that you need that over the course of the season. Even a short, truncated season like this, you're going to need it, particularly if injuries kick in and stuff. The one thing about Cork, and it is something that is kind of synonymous even in their tradition, certainly in their modern tradition, that makes them dangerous, is when they can score goals. And you mentioned the forward line there. When you list them off, I mean, they're the best 6 forwards in Cork are there with the best 6 forwards in the country when they're put together. And in the league, the one thing they did do in the league, they scored goals. They scored 11 goals in 5 games, which in the current climate is a very, very high number. When you look at the number of points that are being scored in games and stuff like that at the minute. So if Cork can get that attacking formula working again and get scoring goals, they could throw some teams back. They could give them something serious to think about. I just think, I mean, people will talk about their physicality all the time. I don't think they're necessarily short of big men. I mean, Bill Cooper's a big unit. Damien Callahan's a big guy. They've plenty of good Seamus Harnedy, no shrinking violet, neither is Patrick Horgan. So I think if they get momentum, they could be dangerous. Right now, like if you look at Munster, Cork and Waterford are probably in the 4th and 5th spots, with Clare just above them. So, I mean, it's a huge opportunity for both teams to be on this side of the draw to get to a Munster final. And like if you go back, I mean, when I mentioned the tradition, I mean, I just think straight, it's 30 years since 1990 when Cork went into a championship really looking much weaker than they do now, and they got to a Munster final assuming that they were going to be beaten by Tipperary, but they just destroyed them with goals. Goals. And I know it's not the given trend right now, goals, but I think for Cork, if you're looking for a team like them, I think if you're looking to break the status quo, well, then you got to look at what you're good at doing, and particularly if it's something that not everybody else is doing. I think goals is the way to go. Take a chance, take a chance, just drop it in, maybe short, and look for, it'll take a lot. It'll take a lot for Cork to progress beyond, we'll say, even the Waterford game is going to be a huge battle for them, and for any progress beyond that, it's going to be difficult for them.
What do you think the impact is of all these tight defeats over the last couple of years? If you go to the 2017 All-Ireland semi-final, basically you had Waterford beaten, then the red card for Jamie Cahalane for the second yellow, and an absolute collapse for the rest of the game. 2018, you're in great spot against Limerick, you're 6 points up, not too long to go in the game. Limerick turn it around and, convincingly win extra time as it goes on, and obviously Cork are bringing back on guys who'd already been injured, which doesn't have a great look to it. And then last year, you have Kilkenny where you want them in the first half. Brian Cody a couple of times has to rejig his backline to try and find some way to stop Cadigan, Horgan and so on. And a massive collapse in the second half. Number one, can you put your finger on why? And does this have a lasting impact that if they meet these teams again this year, that something similar will happen?
I'm not sure it has a lasting impact in that way, but definitely, when you put an accumulation of games together like that for individuals, it puts it up to the individual. Like, are you going to let this happen again? Cork are on a historically bad run of All-Ireland semi-final defeats at the moment. They're on the brink of going the longest stint in the county's history without an All-Ireland hurling title. And as you say, a lot of that is down to not closing out games that were there to win. And there's plenty of teams in football and hurling have that issue. And I think the one common thread I often see anyway in it goes back to that lack of depth, that when things are going maybe wrong or the game is getting away from you, either the management don't have someone they can turn to on the line that they can just put on to change the course of the game, or that inherent competition that's in a squad that keeps guys at the top of their game while the game is ongoing. Do you know what I mean? That kind of keeps them in the moment, because they know if they screw up, they're gone. If you've a thought in the back of your head that I'm probably okay here, I have another 5 minutes to get it right, or I'll be okay, next ball now. That weakness is enough, at that level. When you're dealing with teams with the depth of the likes, again, of the Limericks, the Tips, the Galways, and the Kilkennys to a lesser extent at the moment. So, again, for Cork, it really is, they have enough experience now. The players that are there, even the guys who look like the Mark Colemans, the Colin Spillans who came on, Sean O'Donoghue who came on the scene in the last couple of years, they have enough under their belt now to be going into this season expecting more of themselves and expecting more for Cork. At the same time, they can, it's the old cliche, they can only concentrate on their own performance. The other teams have moved on as well, within Munster in particular. Limerick and Tip, you look at Limerick and Tip on Sunday and that looks like an All-Ireland final, never mind a Munster semi-final. So that's the standard now in Munster. So it's a big leap for Cork to make from going from where they are to going to that. But the Waterford game is a gigantic opportunity, but no more than it is for Waterford. Waterford lost to Cork last year in a dead rubber. 2017, Cork beat them as well. There is a sense, after many, many years where Waterford were able to really put it up to, well, not more than put it up to Cork. They had the whip hand on Cork for many, many years. There is a moment now for Waterford where they may feel they need to pull that back for themselves. So they're going to come, you would imagine they're going to come with a huge, huge effort. And in that way, it's funny, it is a bit like the 80s and the 90s going to matches again. That time, you remember this, Shane, the league meant less than nothing back then. So even if Cork got to a league final or Waterford got to a league final, you'd be taking it with a pinch of salt, a real pinch of salt, even more so than now. So even at championship time, you wouldn't really know what's going to happen. It's a bit like that now. But what you did know, my memory always of Cork and Waterford, and we won't get it on Sunday, unfortunately, is the roar of the Waterford crowd when Waterford come out in a knockout situation like this. I know we have a back door in hurling, but it feels like knockout, I think, anyway. Is that roar and that ferocity that they bring, and they're going to have to bring that. I think Liam Cahill has done a bit of that with them. I get the sense that he brings that energy to all the teams he's with. So it's a huge opportunity for both teams.
Do you sense that Kieran Kingston is the man that can take Cork onto the next level? He was part of management teams in the past, and Jimmy Barry Murphy's one that didn't get across the line in 2013. Obviously, they were so close that time. Then also 2016, it was not a good season for Kieran Kingston in his first year where he was in charge, losing to Wexford in a qualifier, and then the following year, obviously that collapse against Watford. John Myler's had a couple of years since. Is there a reason that we believe that Kieran Kingston is the man to get it done? Because it's the same players.
I think, same players, and I think what Kieran Kingston brought, particularly in his second year, was, he's a terrific. Again, being a manager now is so different to what it would have been a bunch of years ago. I mean, he's a terrific organizer. He very good at putting a package together, if you like. And obviously, then he has the hurling intuition, having played for Cork in many, many years, involved with Cork teams down the decades. Like, so, I mean, he brings a lot to it. I think one of the key things at the end of 2016 was that he listened to the players, and there was a lot of back and forth in terms of where the team needed to go next, what the management team needed to bring. So you had, for example, the likes of Gary Keegan got involved with Cork around that time as a facilitator and a sort of a link man in that way, and did the same job for Cork as he's done for Dublin and other teams ever since. Whether Cork have that kind of expertise now, I think it's coming together for them. The year, the way it's been so messed up. It's very, very hard to say, yeah, he's the man now, they have it sorted, let's see. It's impossible, I mean, if Cork win on Sunday with a bit to spare and they stride into a Munster final and they take out Tipper Limerick, sure, like, I mean, we'll all be experts and we'll say, he's right now. We don't know. We don't know more than we don't know what's going to come on the field. We can't really make a firm judgment in terms of what the Cork management have brought to it. But what we certainly do know is that, given a year with the players in 2016 going into 2017 and on, Kingston had certainly learned a lot and had pulled the thing around in a very positive way for him. So with that experience in mind, you would imagine that he, it advances him down the road a good bit.
Yeah.
But, it's his first year with the team.
Yeah, and I spoke about that Kilkenny result last year and the manner of it, because that was spoken about at such length, the fact that this is the same old Cork. But even just going further back than to Munster, that was started out with a 7-point defeat to Tipperary at home. Then a week later to beat Limerick, and quite convincingly by 7 points. Then a couple of weeks later beat Waterford by 13 points. And then finally losing to Clare, which, score difference got Cork through. So it's not like we've got a brilliant selection of victories to talk about here. Even the Waterford one, Waterford were in a dire place last year.
They were gone. Yeah. And I mean, this is the thing. And the flip side of that then is, like, they were going for 3 months of titles in a row. It's kind of like people forget this. Like, they were good enough at a time when, as I say, when Munster was really competitive, like, at the minute. I mean, it's not all the time that Limerick are at the level they're at. In particular Limerick and Clare, as we saw for stretches last Sunday, Clare to me are back to where they were some time ago, where they have so many good individual players, you just don't know what they're going to bring on the day, but they can do something. So, like, to be on the cusp of winning 3 months of titles in a row, yet have this kind of inconsistency as well, it's very hard to figure. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I do think it's just that question of competition within the squad, and that some of those players are probably quite comfortable where they are, and they're comfortable enough that they're going to get picked every Sunday, and they're going to be given the opportunity, because the guys just aren't behind them. Hopefully that will change in the next couple of years. Obviously they've got some good underage teams coming through, and given time, that competition will intensify a bit more. But, like, look, it's in front of the players now to go forward. And I mean, as I say, we're coming into some pretty serious history in terms of Cork waiting for an All-Ireland, and I'm not putting the pressure on them to win an All-Ireland, but there's certainly, what's consistency? You win game after game after game, and in a year like this, you win how many games you have to win an All-Ireland? 1, 2, 3, 4?
4. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not beyond anything, given a run of the road, and who knows what twists and turns are going to be on this road this winter. So it's there for Cork. There's an opportunity. All you'd be saying for Cork is, look, just win this game, get yourself to a Munster final, and they could be dangerous outliers for Tipper or Limerick in a final.
Yeah, because I think in Munster they have a history recently as well as historically of being able to beat Limerick and Tipperary, so that shouldn't hold any fear for them whatsoever. Then the teams outside of Munster, let's assuming they go through the front door or the back door, what other teams do you reckon they will fear facing? I mean, they've shown that Kilkenny have their edge physically or mentally or whatever it is. Then would go. I
do think it's a physicality thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's that, and again, that physicality thing feeds into fatigue and not being able to replace guys. So, like, I think when you get into, like, Leinster, starting to sound like an old man now, but Leinster hurling's different, and like Galway, Wexford, Kilkenny, particularly Kilkenny and Galway, I think, pose different challenges for Cork that sometimes, quite often now at this stage, they haven't been able to handle. So that's a different kettle of fish for them. But right now, I mean, they can't look beyond Waterford. I mean, it's a very tight, it's a very finely poised game. When you look at Pádraig Mahony missing, when you look at the absentees on the Cork side, it's very finely poised. And we could say a lot of the same, well, not a lot of the same things about Waterford, but I mean, if Waterford were to win and go into a Munster final with that momentum behind them, similar questions and similar conversations will be had about them.
Brilliant stuff, Michael. Really appreciate it.
No problem.